The pit stop is vital to every race team's success. Pull off the track, let your team go to work.
Outside, clear.
Change all 4 tires, fill the fuel cell, and make needed adjustments, all in 8 seconds or less.
Hey, welcome everybody. Pits are open. Brought to you by Speed Sport, your one-stop shop for all racing news, and Redline Ace, your one-stop shop for all racing graphics. And they do it all at Redline Ace, redlineace.com, speedsport.com, speedsport1.com. Good to have you here. And we've got a great show planned for you, and we've got a great engineer today, filling in for Alex, the vacationing Alex, is Gorgeous George. Gorgeous George, nice to have you back. Good to see you there. Holy cow, Batman! What an incredibly, well, I mean, in some parts, incredibly exciting race from Portland this past weekend. Alex Palou captured his 4th championship, kind of a sleeper there. Alex Palou, who was, Padua Ward, who was the only person that could catch him, had a quick exit, so that was sad for him. And Alex kind of cruised the rest of the way. Great race for Will Power. I'm so grateful that Will's been one of my favorite drivers over the years. I don't understand why Penske is so slow. In fact, not giving any feedback from something I picked up on social media this morning. Will's wife said that they're getting no feedback from Penske, but other teams are interested in Will Power. And so I'm happy for him. I hope somebody picks him up. Will's a great driver, a great guy, very competitive. One of the greatest of all times in IndyCar racing. And so we're happy for that. And the big news of the weekend was the little battle between Christian Rasmussen and Connor Daly. And let me just say at the outset, first of all, I like Connor Daly. I know Connor Daly. I don't have any problem with Connor. I really like, and he's becoming a favorite of mine, and that would be Christian Rasmussen. And they were battling. They were battling hard. And at one point, Christian, I think elbowed a little too hard and sent Connor off the track. Connor came back, and a couple laps later, they were going through a corner. Connor was trying to pass money outside, and Christian kind of just kept going the way he was going and pushed him off the track. And fortunately for Connor, he didn't get hurt. James Hinchcliffe, who I know is a friend of Connor Daly's, did say that, the rule is very clear that the overtaking car has responsibility for no contact. But I don't know. I don't even know if he followed the rule. I don't know if that was possible because Christian was very aggressive. So a lot of negativity towards Christian. And here's what I don't get, and this is what I don't understand. You've got some of the greatest drivers in history that were not exactly pansies on the track. And I'll just name a couple. Dale Earnhardt was one of the most aggressive, some would say dirty drivers in NASCAR. I mean, why do you think they called him the Intimidator, right? In Formula One, Ayrton Senna had more contact with more cars the first 4 years of his career than anybody in history, and had quite an ongoing verbal feud with Sir Jackie Stewart over it. But yet, they look at Earnhardt and say he's one of the all-time greatest. They look at Senna, all-time greatest. A.J. Foyt was no pushover in anybody's book. A.J. was out there to win, push, move, shove, slapping drivers in the back. Ari Lyondike. And all these guys are considered the greatest of the greatest of the greatest. So why is a little aggressive driving by Christian Rasmussen getting him such a bad reputation? I don't see it. I think he's trying to win. He's trying to earn his spot, keep his spot on Carpenter Racing. I don't feel like, I don't know. I don't get it. So I'm glad Connor's all right. No injury there. I think it was borderline too aggressive for Christian. But you know what? Some of these guys over the years have been borderline everything, and they're still considered part of the greatest of all time group. So I'm not going to criticize Christian for that. But you can say what you want. Also, hey, we're starting a new program right after this one at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be co-hosting with Kurt Hansen on his Race Central program. That's going to be, I believe, on Facebook and YouTube, or you can go to his website, racecentral.com. I think it'll be on his website as well. And Kurt's been around forever. Kurt's older than dirt. Oh, no. I shouldn't say that. But Kurt was a racer himself, a driver himself. He's been involved with every series. He's announced at every level for many, many networks. And I'm going to have the pleasure of co-hosting his program. And that's going to come around tonight at 5 o'clock. So when you get done here, take a break, go to use the bathroom, and then come on back for racecentral.com. And we'll have Kurt Hansen on and yours truly as co-host. Our first guest today, I'm so happy to have her because she's become a good friend over the years. She's been in this business a long time, been very successful, and is starting yet a new chapter. And I'm excited for her to talk about it. I want to welcome for the first time to the Pits Open our good friend, Maria Perez. Maria, welcome.
Well, hello. Thank you for having me today.
Good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
You've been doing this for a bit. You've been at it for a while. You've had great success in different kinds of sponsorship seeking. Give folks a little bit about your background and the new chapter that you're launching now, which is very exciting from what I can tell.
Yeah. Well, I started my career pretty early, right? Straight out of grad school. I supported the sponsorship development for Sesame Street. So that was super amazing.
Wow.
And in those days, a company like IBM would come in and they'd want to control everything. So it was incumbent upon us to fill the boat with lots of different partners. And then there was match funding from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So it was a little bit of a different twist, but it was how we got funded. So sure. I cut my teeth on that. And then I went back to Southern California for a while and had a corporate partnership industrial business. This is a great story for me to tell because I was thinking about it all morning before I came on. I was on an airplane going to produce a commercial in Homestead, Florida. And I met a stewardess who said, "Oh, I really like you and you're super fun. And, how would you like to come to Mid-Ohio and meet me there next week?"
Oh, yeah.
And I had never in my life been to a race.
Okay.
So I get to Mid-Ohio. I can't tell my Andretti and his current wife at the time story because that would be bad. But anyway, it was very bizarre to show up in Mid-Ohio. But I looked around and I thought, what is going on here? They have a television package. They have color commentators. They have all these sponsors. They have, corporate hospitality. And I got the fever. And at the time, I happened to have an account in Washington, D.C., an ad agency that was the Secretariat for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, DOT. Okay, they regulate the manufacturers. They do the crash tests. They care about consumer forward-facing things like don't drink and drive, wear your seatbelt, buckle up your baby.
Yeah. And
NASCAR had turned them down. And FedEx was the title at the time. And they're regulated by DOT. So long story short, I represented the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in IndyCar racing for the better part of 13 years.
Wow.
So I did cause and social issues marketing in IndyCar with everybody.
Right.
I worked with lots of wonderful people. I worked with Arie Luyendyk for a really long time. First person I worked for was the inevitable Chip Ganassi.
Yes.
And it goes on. But, I did it I had a different perspective.
Yeah.
I brought the Secretary of Transportation to a Penske track, and he was at the time the highest ranking African American. And we were on the podium. The regulators were on the podium. It was a beautiful thing. So that's how I cut my teeth in racing.
And that all started at Mid-Ohio?
It all started Mid-Ohio.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was, I can't remember if Michael or Bobby won that race, but I think Bobby won the championship that year. So, but anyway, so I parlayed that into, when I left IndyCar about in 2000, I think I want to say, I started doing distribution of messaging because I had done so much media. And where I've landed now is that I have so much experience in sponsorship, both on the for-profit side and the nonprofit side, that I've kind of landed on. And my specialty is purpose-driven initiatives, right? So if you're a for-profit company and you want to, ideate, advance, or amplify what you're doing, I will help you. But if you're a nonprofit, I will help you develop your sponsorship program. And so, because everybody seems to crawl down the how hole when it comes to sponsorship, they don't understand what it is.
Right.
I've created
That's true.
the sponsorship lounge. There are a lot of people out there doing, and you have been a student of mine, doing courses, making people pay lots of money. But at the end of the day, when they go to do it, they get stuck down the how hole. They
Yeah.
can't. They don't know how. Where do I start? Who do I call? What do I say? Oh, no, you should just give me money because I'm doing good. Oh, no, you should just give me money because I have a race team.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And they all fail. So I've created this hub where people can come and hang out and talk to people like, the sponsorship guy, Larry, or talk to me, or meet folks like you that actually have a team and are actually trying to do the sponsorship sales thing. And I hope to launch it soon. So, anybody that wants to come down to the sponsorship lounge, come on down.
I mean, you mentioned it. They don't. There's a lack of knowledge, and we try to help young drivers and small teams because, how long ago did it end that sponsors could care less that their decal was on the car, the logo? It's not about logos anymore.
It's all data driven. It's all data driven. I mean,
it's all data driven, and it's all. I think a lot of it is your ability to engage fans with the brand. There's the sweet spot. And I don't think most people understand that, or I don't think they maybe even know how to do it.
So I know you've heard me talk about this before. It's kind of like my spiel, but I look at there being 3 buckets of money. Okay, there's patronage, which means an individual or corporation gives you money because they like what you do. You could be a nonprofit, you could be a race team, it doesn't matter, and you say thank you.
Right.
You're a corporate partner. You get 50,000 bottles of water for your run, or oil for your car, or tires for your car, whatever. That's transactional. And you say thank you. It used to be that sponsorship was who can you put in the room, and can you give it at a better price than traditional advertising? And oh, by the way, can you help me brand differentiate, be a thought leader, and generate leads? And that remains the case. However, with this layer of data-driven, things get super granular. And I mean, if you got money like F1, you can do all kinds of things. Right. But if you're just a beginning starter person, you kind of have to be more grassroots, personal services, hospitality. And then there's so much competition. So, I think what stands out the most is this brand differentiation and the fan engagement. And it's funny because I was watching your interview with Kim that you did recently. Yep. She was talking about some very straightforward activation. And let me tell you a story. My favorite activation of all time is there was an influencer party in Southern California. They had 100 people, like the Kardashians and the like, the goodie bags, the Rolex, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And they had a car sponsor, and it was Chevrolet. They didn't have, Porsche or BMW or Mercedes. It was Chevrolet. And you're like, what they did was they brought a tricked out Suburban, shiny black, dark windows, shiny wheels, and they parked it in the foyer. What do you think they did? They put a fortune teller in it. Yeah. Every person crawled in that car.
Really? Wow.
And so, that's just an example. It sounds really dumb, but engaging, people wanted their tarot cards or their crystal ball or whatever it was. So, that's what you have to come up with to be different.
I don't know how much of this comes back to this, Maria, but I still think the business-to-business plays are important. And I think if I'm selling widgets and you want me to give you $1, $5, $10 million, whatever, in my mind as the business owner, I'm thinking about how many widgets can I sell, and what's my return on investment going to be?
Well, so I think a lot of these programs that tout teaching you sponsorship fall short because they talk about the data points of the audience, but they don't necessarily, as you bring up, talk about the ICP, the ideal customer profile. And I think you have to temper that. It is not a sponsor's job to sell for the tractor company.
Right.
It's not, or whoever the sponsor is, it's not their job. But they have to provide, especially with all the data-driven stuff, because if you can measure fan engagement, B2B sales is going to be important, and you're going to have to demonstrate that you move that needle. And so how do you do that, right?
Well, and I tell sponsors all the time, I can't sell your product. you're going to have to sell your product. And I'll never forget, a number of years ago, we were working with a healthcare company, and we hired a company to do the social media on it. And over the span of about 4.5 months, I don't know how many millions of impressions we got, but we literally brought them on a landing page setup. We literally brought them over 6,000 people, name, age, address, email, and they didn't continue to sponsor you because they said, well, we didn't sell enough policies. I'm like, I can't do that for you. I can bring the horse to water, but you've got to make them drink it. That's not my job.
I went back to expectations of brand differentiation, thought leadership, and lead gen. So if that was their expectation, what is the lead generation system in place? And do they have the sales infrastructure to plug in? And if they don't, it's not your fault. But
well, again, I probably didn't understand that up front. Maybe I should have. I
no, I think
with
it's
them.
endemic. I think it's endemic. I think there are sponsors that think you should sell my stuff.
Yeah.
And those are the ones.
I guess, but I'm not good at selling widgets. That's not my deal. Let me just talk a little bit about your new chapter called Sponsorship Lounge, and you're doing an incredible intro for folks to get into it. And I will tell you this: I've worked with Maria for a long time. There's very few people that I know in this business that have the full scope of comprehension that Maria has with understanding sponsorship from the initial call, from the initial pitch, to following it through, to sponsorship, to fulfillment reports, to getting information. Maria understands it all, so you'll help yourself. This is what the membership includes. Live coaching calls, says Ask Me Anything, valuation workshops, discovery, sales, and outreach, real-time expert. What is the Genius Bar? Real-time expert advice from the Genius Bar. What is the Genius Bar?
How many times have you been preparing for a discovery call and you get completely stuck and you wish you could just get on the phone or get an answer from somebody? I learned this from Larry, the sponsorship guy, because IBM does this. They have a Genius Bar on it at their conferences, on-site activation, so that when people are attending a conference and they're considering a product that they're selling, they can go right up and there's a genius there specializing in that field that will answer their questions. So I'm like, oh, why don't we do that?
Wow, that's good. I like it. Advanced insights via our Savant Savvy strategy vault.
Savant Savvy. So again, that's like having people like yourself or Larry or any number of my colleagues come on and let people pick their brain.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. You got a private Facebook community. We like that. And then you can move up into a different level and get one-on-one coaching from you. But the introductory on the founding members price for Sponsorship Lounge, $497 a year. That's like, I mean, that's Dunkin' Donut money. I mean, it's like that's Starbucks money.
And I'll tell you, it gets better because I have finished the first valuation calculator, and there are 2 more coming. One is being programmed. So the first one is simple because I taught valuation I coached valuation for a long, long time. And even I would get confused. It's like, what asset and what eyeballs and what the heck number do I put in here to like do this calculation? So I made a super simple, stupid one that I can help people understand what that is. And once they get their head around that, there's a more comprehensive one. And of course, with all the technology and stuff changing, I have some significant developers working on something, but that's going to take a while. Okay. But regardless, there are people out there that are I get that question more than anything. How do I figure out how much to price it at?
Right. Well, I mean, the whole ROI thing, I think a lot of people in motorsports are afraid when the ROI question comes up, they're afraid to even try to tackle it.
Well, it's not brain surgery. It's super simple.
Yeah.
If I can go buy those eyeballs at ad rates, why would I give you the money?
Right, exactly.
Because you're giving, and I tell people this example. If you can get 100 lawyers in a conference room, okay, and I've seen it done. I've seen it at
That's a frightening thought.
100 lawyers. If you can, versus a company that wants to sell to lawyers, hiring somebody, paying their salary, paying their benefits, hoping they get appointments, hoping they go to those 100 offices, and then hit their number. What's cheaper, the sponsorship or the ladder?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's
Yeah.
the case.
Mhm.
You know, that's the case you have to build. It's cheaper and a better deal and a good
Yeah.
value. And oh, by the way, those are the people you said you wanted to get to here.
Yeah. That's awesome. So all right. So first time sponsorship seeker, young driver, small, solopreneur team. How should they start their search for potential sponsors?
I'm actually coaching two of them right now. I'm
Yeah.
coaching. I'm coaching Alana Carter, and I'm coaching Eric Kunz, who is the Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm coaching both of them. So in the case of Driven Living, which is Eric's program, which is he has a rare disease, but he still is champion, and so he differentiates himself. We've created some trackside experiences. Some activations that would be very, very compelling in the race markets to rare disease families
Yeah.
and centers of excellence, and just a feel good of, God, get me out of the hospital or get me to stop. Let me go to the track and have fun and stop thinking about what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're selling against. And it's pretty exciting stuff. And Alana, I mean, she's beautiful. She's good. She's grooming herself to be sort of a brand ambassador. And I think both of these guys, I encourage them to do personal services arrangements. I remember Ari always kept his helmet, kept his suit, always had these personal relationships aside from the relationship with the teams
Sure.
or Target or whoever had to be sponsored in the race market. And I really encourage that, because a lot of these people are patrons. They're giving you money because they like you and they like what you do. Period. It has nothing to do with sponsorship.
You mentioned the personal service agreements. I mean, in IndyCar, it's gold, because with the IndyCar cameras, you can advertise like mad on helmets, and if drivers can keep that, I mean, that's
those models. All those integrations that you've seen for 2 decades in motorsport, a driver can do that too, especially with social media and content. I don't know if you remember Randy. He's a Formula One boat racer. I think he got 1 million views for pointing a camera at a boat that was racing. I mean, it was the most boring thing I've ever seen. It was like watching paint dry. But
one man's garbage, or trash, another man's treasure.
Yeah. So I go back to that silly activation with the fortune teller. I mean, I really do think that things like that, are where you have to start when you're beginning.
Well, I've always had this, and I think it's true in church, and I think it's true across the board. Hokey stuff sells. Corny stuff sells. And I mean, who would have thought of that? A fortune teller in a big, a Chevrolet, Suburban, decked out Suburban, right?
$150,000 for that.
They're going to remember that. Oh, remember the time we were in the Suburban and fortune teller? I mean, that's people connect with stuff. I wouldn't, but people connect with stuff like that. So I get it. So I target a sponsor. They're open. What's my next? What am I going to do next? I've talked to them. Discovery call. I found out their pain points. I found out what they're looking to do. Do I need a deck? What am I going to do next?
I don't like decks. I think decks are useful to teach people how to represent activations and their business case and all that stuff. I actually prefer a case study. And I'm happy to, any of your viewers that would like some examples, happy to, they can reach me at coach@thesponsorshiplounge.com. I'll send them. What I like about these case studies, and I can't take responsibility for creating them. A friend of mine, Joe, that has a podcast called Selfish Giving, did it. But what it is it's a retrospective that shows everything about the partnership in less than 2 pages. What was the strategic approach? What were the outcomes?
Wow.
They are beautiful.
2
they
pages.
are beautiful.
That's insane.
They're beautiful, and they're retrospectives on success.
Yeah.
So I prefer that people use those. And to answer your question, it's really simple. You have to have a prescriptive solution. I actually will tell you what I've been doing lately that I really found helpful. I use a listening tool called Fathom on my calls. I fired all my other note takers. And I also use Perplexity, which is an AI tool. Yeah. And after every sponsorship discovery call, I take the meeting notes, I go over to Perplexity and I say, help me write a thank you note, and please listen to what the prospect said they need and want. And based on my background, and I put in my information, help me give them a roadmap to success. And that's where I start. And even if you never use that stuff, it's a great exercise because the AI is listening as a third party. And it's just, it saves you hours of, what am I going to show them? What am I going to sell them? You
brought it up, and I want to continue because before coming on, I just finished a class on ChatGPT-5. And, I'm old school, I've been around.
I'm old.
I'm older than dirt. But I'm amazed. I'm amazed. I was amazed at ChatGPT. Now I'm more amazed by ChatGPT-5. How much are you integrating, and how much do you think most of us who are sponsorship seekers should be integrating AI into our
my tech stack? I had the whiz bang tech stack with Apollo and sending out 75,000 emails, but unfortunately, sponsorship is very difficult, and when you're doing cold outreach, it just doesn't work. I know I've tried it for years. I have a very specific tech stack that I'm going to share with anyone that joins the Sponsorship Lounge, you need curation, right? And you need to be able to manage this stuff, and I rely on it 100%.
Really? Oh my gosh, 100%.
I really do.
That's a lot. We only got a few minutes left, Maria. Talking with Maria Perez from the Sponsorship Lounge. Again, if you want to reach her, it's coach@sponsorshiplounge.com. Is that correct? Or thesponsorshiplounge.com?
No, thesponsorshiplounge.com.
Okay, so coach@thesponsorshiplounge.com. All right, so I got the sponsor. Things are going well, having a decent season. What do I want to do in terms of reporting? What do they want to know back from me during the season, at the end of the season? How often should I be reporting to them? What should I be doing?
Well, you need to be monitoring the outcomes without question, and you need to be able to demonstrate where you've over-delivered and under-delivered. And if you have the ability to compensate where you've under-delivered, you should do it.
Yeah.
The other thing that's super important, and a lot of folks, especially when they're starting, don't do media monitoring. If you walk through the paddock in IndyCar, everyone's got a PR person and a PR firm, and everything's being measured. But when you're first starting out, you usually don't. That has a lot of value. That earned media, whether it's a cause you support, or a visit to a hospital, or when I worked for the Herdez team, we would get on the food page. I wasn't going to compete for the sports page. They were they had food all over their car. Let's put a recipe on the, so.
Now you're talking my language, the food. Well, we just had on last week, I had on Erica Seitzma, who is the founder of a group called Autofluencer. And this is exactly what they do for small teams. They monitor everything, and then they produce reports for earned media and say, here's what we did for you last month. Here's what we did for you this past season. And Erica was fascinating.
Well, why do you think a name and word mark is the most valuable sponsorship asset you can have? Right, every time the brand is baked into the name of the Vans World Tour. They don't call it Raider Stadium. They call it Allegiant Stadium.
Sure. Yeah.
So you need to measure that. You're leaving money on the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Maria, thank you so much for coming on. And again, it's the sponsorshiplounge.com. And if you want to reach Maria, just email her, coach@thesponsorship.lounge. And again, you can get in the first year at $497 a year. That is incredibly good price. And she will not let you down. Maria knows her stuff, and she's been doing it for a long time. Thank you, my friend. Good to hear all the good news happening for you. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you. All right. We've got another guest coming on. Before we do that, though, we want to mention one of our sponsors. This segment is being brought to you by America's Christian Credit Union. If you're looking for a smart, faith-aligned way to grow your savings, listen up. Right now, the Christian Credit Union is offering a 12-month certificate at the highest rate in the nation, 4.75%. It's a limited time. It's for new credit union members only. Deposits up to $1 million. You can get started with little as $1,000. It's called a term share certificate. It's similar to a CD, but it's got more mission behind it. So don't wait. Lock in the rate now before it drops. Goes to americaschristiancu.com/pits so we can get credit for it. americaschristiancu.com/pits. to get started. And we are going to next week have a very exciting new sponsor announcement to add to our team of Speed Sport and Redline Ace and America's Christian Credit Union. I'm really excited about it. I'll tell you, I'm really excited about our next guest. Our next guest is an author. Hey, let me say this. Our next guest is kind of like me. He's been almost a lifelong fan of the Indy 500, loves IndyCar racing. And the reason I say it, I get criticized. I get some pushback when I criticize the sport that I love so much when I don't think they're doing the right thing. And, I was watching a SEAL give a talk a few weeks ago, and he said, you got to have three people in your life. You got to have one person that's going to call you out. When you're doing stupid stuff, you're not doing the right thing, you need somebody that can call you out, and you listen to that person. You listen to her. You got another person you can tell anything to. They won't put your trash out in the street. And then you've got to have one person that's going to be there for you no matter what. 3 o'clock in the morning, you call me, you need help, they're there. If you have at least one of those, you're fortunate. Two of them. If you got all three, you're in great shape. So I don't think because we call things out, I don't think it's a negative thing. It shouldn't be, but depends how people take constructive criticism. He wrote a book that I picked up several years ago. I'm on the second reading now. It's called The Split, and it's all about the very painful time 1996, 2007, when we had two competing Indy type racing leagues. It was just disastrous. We've never fully recovered. I think it's the most authoritative book ever written about it. And he's coming out with a new one, too. So for the first time on the Pits Are Open, I'm happy and pleased welcome John Orjavec with us. John, welcome to the show.
Hello, Will. I hope you can hear me.
I can. You're loud and clear and a great picture. Thank you so much. Give us a little bit about your background, John. Like when was your first? I always ask people, when was your first 500? So how did that love affair start for you?
So the love affair for me started with the Volkswagen Beetle, the old air-cooled Beetle.
Wow.
I used to, when I was a little kid, I had a photographic memory where I could pick out, any year Beetle that went by in the 60s or 70s. And we moved to Indiana from Pennsylvania at roughly the same time that my parents, who were college professors, got me a subscription to Road and Track magazine. And Road and Track covered Formula One very substantially. So I started reading the Formula One reports, and that's what actually got me interested in racing. But my parents had friends that they saw, they picked up my interest, and they said, hey, we're going down to the Speedway or the 500. Wow. So my parents, who had little or no interest in cars, were happy to stoke my interest. So Bump Day 1977 was the first day I went to the track.
Great year.
Oh
my God.
The day Janet Guthrie qualified.
Yeah,
a famous day. And then my first race was the following year with Al Unser winning over Tom Sneva.
Wow. 70 sounds like my favorite. I mean, there's some sad stuff. I mean, you had the first 200-mile-an-hour lap at Indy with Tom Sneva at 77. Yeah. You had Janet Guthrie, first woman to qualify at Indianapolis. You had AJ's fourth win at the 500. Unfortunately, we lost Tony Holman that year. We lost Sid Collins that year. But that was and I graduated from high school that year. So
and on an unrelated note, it is my personal favorite year for live rock and roll. I'm a bootleg audio collector.
Yeah, okay.
Whether it's Pink Floyd, the Grateful Dead, Fleetwood Mac, you name it. It's Led Zeppelin. It is the best year for live rock and roll.
Did we have great music back then? Son of a gun. That's awesome. Well, that's all of Sirius XM. When we're traveling on a trip, we can get top hits of the 70s on Sirius. It's all like, that's another great one, right? We
I started going to races outside of Indianapolis in the early 80s. Milwaukee, eventually places like Toronto, went to Long Beach for the first time in 88. And, as I was approaching my mid-20s, I went back to school. I thought, I decided I wanted to be an IndyCar journalist.
Yeah.
And I thought you needed a degree to do that. So I made the effort to go back and get one.
Well, I was going to say, your parents are professors. I can tell by your writing.
And
phenomenal.
I think my
apple didn't fall far from the tree.
I think my personal form of rebellion against them was the fact that I didn't actually achieve a college degree till I was 47 years old.
Yeah,
so.
better. Some of us are late bloomers, John. Let me read something that this is something that was written about your book, The Split, from someone I'm sure you appreciate and admire. I still haven't got over his loss. First of all, it says Oreo was a good writer, covered car, IRL, IndyCar for ESPN, autosport racer, and was a PR man for Pat Gretz. He knows the sport, the players, the politics. The book is written because it lays out all of the stupidity, egos, and mistakes that were made on both sides. And you can't say the split didn't do the damage. Just look at the attendance, the sponsorship, the ratings, the media coverage, CART, all things in the 90s, and how it's diminished today. And I would add today, we gave NASCAR their biggest boost during that time.
Oh, totally.
John spent several years getting interviews, going over old stories, notes. I think it was about the most even-handed approach view anyone could want. I'm proud of Oreo penning a much-needed history book, and that was from, of course, the late, great Robin Miller. I told you we met a couple years ago. I think the split was an eye opener. I'm a longtime fan, but there was stuff in that book I didn't know, I didn't understand.
Yeah, and people constantly remind me, hey, you missed this or you missed that, and yeah, I mean it's there are a lot of layers to peel of that onion, and obviously, as you know, when people think of the Indy split, they think of the CART IRL split, 1996 to 2008. But to explain that split, you had to explain the 1979 split and the fact that, the bad feelings never went away. And to explain the 79 split, you've got to go back to, the foreign invasion and the formation of USAC. So it goes all the way back to the book is a history of IndyCar racing in the management of the Holman family.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but prior to the split, the Gurney paper came out, the Gurney white paper came out.
Yeah, that kind of sparked the 79 split.
That really, it was I thought the kind of the spark that kicked it off in that sense.
Yeah, people don't understand that in the late 70s, CART wasn't formed to say, oh, we're going to take control of IndyCar racing. CART was formed because the United States Auto Club, and by extension, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, as Robin would say, didn't give a fiddler's blank about anything outside of Indianapolis.
Yeah.
So you had the Indy 500 that was this giant successful event, but the teams needed IndyCar racing to be a 12-month-a-year sport, which it wasn't. And we can get into this later if you want. That's where they're at right now. That's where they're at right now. Exactly.
Oh, gosh.
So CART was formed not to take over the sport, but to improve the marketing and promotion and to make it a better business venture for them. And people lose sight of that. Every time that there's been conflict, it was the Speedway side fighting change.
Sure. Do you think it's ironic, John? Do you think it's ironic that it was Roger Penske after, clearly there was some tension between Tony George and Roger back in the day during the split time. Do you think it's ironic that Roger ends up buying the whole deal from the George family?
I think it's one that nobody saw coming, really. And honestly, I've just written a long story that's going to be the lead story in the November issue of Motorsport Magazine, which is out of England, but you can buy it at Barnes and Noble and get it online. Yeah. But to me, Penske's acquisition of the Speedway and the Indy 500, it's arguably the crowning achievement of his business career.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is a guy who threw away a promising racing career when he's 23 years old or whatever to focus on business and buy a Chevrolet dealer and go down that path, which eventually made him, let's face it, Roger Penske is the world's biggest car salesman.
Yeah.
If you look at Penske Automotive.
Well,
so I think that, given his love for the Speedway and the role that it played in his life, having gone since 1951, and devoted himself to racing and perfection at the Indy 500, I think buying the Speedway, I mean, it might be the biggest thing he's ever accomplished in his mind. I don't think he'd ever admit it, but.
Well, how can you say he's not? I mean, other than, of course, now Ganassi has matched him with Alex's latest championship. Ganassi's tied with Penske for championships, but you can't say anybody's done better at the Indy 500 in history from a car.
No,
than Penske. I mean, he's the king.
It's almost synonymous in a way with the Indianapolis 500's elevated status You know, it's what made Penske racing. You know, as AJ used to say, well, Pocono didn't make AJ, the Indy 500 made AJ, and
sure.
and the Indy 500 made Roger Penske.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It's where his public image was derived. So yeah, it's very interesting to see it back where it was in the 70s.
I was overjoyed back in November of 19 to hear that Penske Entertainment was buying the whole thing lock, stock, and barrel. I don't know that the George family could have sustained the track, the series through COVID. And
I'm in full agreement with that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people. I still. I mean, I'm not unhappy that Penske bought it all, but I think the honeymoon's over, and I say that because Penske Entertainment. I've been saying I think should maybe think of a different name because their marketing capability, their business is fantastic, but the marketing capability I don't think is well executed, and I think the proof of that was Iowa this year when we sold 3,000 tickets for 2 races. I told people over the years, if I could grow up, when I grow up, I want to have the marketing acumen of Andy Granatelli and the business sense of Roger Penske. If you could put those two things together, I mean, you'd have an insane creation. So now we get the news that Fox buys into Penske. Do you think? I mean, I think that's not as big, but I think that's a major occurrence in the sense of Penske buying the series, Penske buying track. Not as big, but I think it's a big deal to IndyCar. Do you agree or no?
I think the key point to focus on is that, okay, this has been reported as $130 million for 30% of IndyCar, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, IMS Productions.
Yeah.
Within the same 24 hours, a 4.6% stake in the Aston Martin Formula One team transferred for $147 million. The key takeaway in this is how little value IndyCar has. And $130 million investment in Fox, they'll recoup that just out of their ownership stake in the Speedway. And frankly, they'll pull that out of IMS Productions.
Yeah, sure.
IMS Productions, they just gained an asset.
Right.
Right. So there was a lot of noise this year about how Fox was going to, bring it with the promotion and everything. And yeah, they made 3 ads back in March, and we've seen them a zillion times since then. And the TV audience for the broadcasts it's getting smaller and smaller. And that tells you either the product's bad or the broadcasts are bad, or both.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean
is that a direct? Is what we're living today and what we've lived in the last few years, is that a direct result of the split? I mean, is that? I mean,
it still
obviously
is.
we were damaged.
The legacy of the split is the diminished value of IndyCar racing. The fact that in the early half of the 90s, teams could find sponsorship, $10-12 million per car in 30 years ago, and they can't do that now. Even Team Penske, look at that. They don't have, other than Verizon, they don't have a single season-long sponsor.
Right.
You've got Verizon, you've got PNC Bank. I can't think of another season-long sponsor, DHL maybe, but even they're not on all 17 races or whatever. Right. That's the legacy of the split. It completely, not only did it take away the fan base, but it sucked the value out of IndyCar racing. And the reaction to it, cutting costs, save the teams from themselves. It cheapened IndyCar racing. It's not special anymore. When you got a bunch of spec cars going around Road America 6 seconds a lap slower than they did 25 years ago, that's not progress in racing. Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the last lap record, 1996, that's not progress in racing. But they're afraid to open it up. It's not even at this point, it's not even a matter of getting another engine manufacturer or chassis manufacturer. It's of letting Chevrolet, of Honda, of the teams, for God's sake, let them develop their own front wing. These are the things that car people care about, and this whole spec formula thing, it's completely sucked the car element out of IndyCar racing. There's no interest in going to the Speedway during the month of May to see who's got anything different or better.
I mean, I remember qualifying days, you'd have 100, 150,000 people at the track. Now
That's the way it was. I mean, honestly,
Now-
up until the early 90s, the last really big qualifying day crowd I can remember was pole day 92.
yeah, yeah,
And for whatever reason, I seem to remember it, the crowds started getting smaller as the 90s, even before the split.
yeah.
But some of that was, again, when they took the apron way in 93, they automatically cut 10 miles an hour off the lap speeds.
Right.
And
Well, people love to go to the track and hear somebody say it's a new track record, but we're not going to hear that.
you haven't heard it, at least for one lap or four laps.
Yeah,
I mean, coming up, it'll be 30 years in May. 30 years.
yeah.
And 18 of them or whatever have been using this car. But I digress.
Yeah, no, but it's like, and I won't go off into this angle, but I love space travel. I love watching it. I remember I used to tape it on my cassette recorder. Right, I mean, all right, going to the moon, 1969. Mario Andretti wins the 500. I mean, what we're doing now seems tame. I mean, it's not. Space travel has always been dangerous. But how is it that we have these long gaps of? I mean, the cars are as safe now as they've ever been.
It's this huge focus on cost cutting.
Yeah.
And Penske, who back in the day was the guy that had to have his own thing, he's the guy now that's beating the cost cutting drum.
Yeah.
And it's wrong. It's wrong for IndyCar racing. If you want to talk about speed and technology and excellence, you can't be running 15-year-old spec cars.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it is. It's frustrating, and I shudder to think. I don't know this, but I'm afraid of it. I shudder to think if Honda pulls out after 26.
Honestly, to me, everything points to it.
Yeah.
When you've got Honda already saying, hey, we support just using an Ilmor spec engine that we can badge. I mean, it kind of says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they go
Again,
to Formula
it's
One. You know,
Honda-
huge money in
Honda-
Formula One.
Yeah, Honda's been involved in it for 30 years, and it's run its course for them. They're not developing people, they're not developing technology, and they're not getting anything out of it from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah. Gosh, go back and tell us a little bit. We're talking with John Orevich. For the folks that aren't aware of it, because it's a while ago now since we had the split, kind of outline the steps. Walk us through the timeline in a few minutes, if you could, please.
Well, the biggest domino to fall, you mentioned it earlier, Tony Holman died in October of 77. And there was not a next generation that the Holman family was willing to put in charge right away. Mm-hmm. Mary Holman George was a woman, and women didn't get put in charge of things in the 1970s. Yeah. Elmer George, her husband, had been shot and killed by Mary's boyfriend. So there was this missing link, and they were basically waiting for Tony George to hand him the keys to the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And he turned 30 in December of 1989. And that's the first key point. And Tony wasn't ready to be the leader. He, you can say what you want about his transgressions in his younger years, but by any standard, he was unpolished and a bit arrogant and aloof. Tony got off, he had John Cooper and people like that for years, telling him that CART was evil and everything. CART was sustaining the Indy 500 throughout the 80s and into the 90s. And this is CART's legacy, is that CART took the Indy 500 and a handful of crappy oval races, and they turned it into the Indy 500 and 15 races around the country and eventually around the world in a highly successful series, while not hurting the Indianapolis 500. Right. Tony went to Houston in October of 91 and basically said, here's my plan, take it or leave it. The CART guys said, leave it. He flew home with Tony Bettenhausen, MFing the CART guys the whole way home, said, I'm going to show them. I'm going to start my own series. And he announced it in March of 94. They ran their first race in January of 96. And in between, in July of 95, the key event was they announced that this new series, which didn't even have a name yet, it became the IRL, the Indy Racing League, would reserve 75% of the field at every race for points leaders in the series. So if CART didn't show up at the first couple races before the Indy 500 in 1996, they would be fighting for 8 places on the Indy 500 grid, the so-called 25 and 8 rule. So then you had you can call it a boycott, you can call it what you want, but CART staged their own event, and Penske was the ringleader of this. He leased the Michigan Speedway, which he owned at the time, and they ran a race head-to-head May 26, 1996, a 500
which was a
miler.
disaster, as I recall.
It was called the US
They made
500.
500. It was a total.
And Brian
slugfest.
Herta and Adrian Fernandez crashed into each other, approaching the green flag, and 17 cars wrecked. And it was a complete embarrassment because for the past year, CART had been going around saying, we're the professionals, we're the cars and stars. These are a bunch of, yokel nobodies running the Indy 500. And, they embarrassed themselves badly. And that was, to me, that was the first key karmic turning point. CART stayed strong through the end of the 90s. The IRL never really established a foothold. And during that time, the fact that it was out there advertising itself as the Indy 500 while putting on a crappy show with a bunch of nobodies, that was when the value got sucked out. And then the next key event is documented right here in Class of 99, my new book.
Wow.
The last race of the 99 CART season, a guy called Greg Moore, who was destined to be the next big star in the sport, got killed. In an audience of 2 million people on ESPN2 and 80,000 people at California Speedway. And it's, as I say, it's the day the music died. It didn't recover.
That was hard to watch. That was hard to watch.
It made Elio Castroneves, because Greg Moore had signed to drive for Penske in 2000, and Elio Castroneves ended up driving that car. And that's Elio was a promising second-year driver in 1999, but he was not a can't-miss star like Greg Moore was. And you think about what Greg Moore would have achieved. Elio Castroneves, I look back and doing some of the research for the book, I realized, hey, Elio had a better year than I gave him credit for in 99 at the time. But, Greg Moore, Dario Franchitti, Max Pappas, Tony Kanaan, they all told me, look, the guy would have won Indy 5 or 6 times. If you take Rogers' cars and his talent on ovals especially, he would have just mopped the floor. And that's, a karmic turning point. CART went bankrupt at the end of 2003. Kevin Kalkoven and Jerry Forsyth saved it, continued it as the Champ Car World Series for another 4 years. So by this time in 2007, you had dueling 18-car fields.
Yeah. And
neither of them, the strength of field switched from CART to the IRL dramatically between about 2002 and 2004. By 2007, IRL had the stronger field. They had Honda, they had more sponsors, but it was pointless. It was 2 meaningless championships. So they finally came together in early 2008. It never really did regain traction, in part because the Holman family up to that point had spent an estimated $500 million on sustaining and creating the IRL. But at that moment, when they unified, that's when they really needed to pour on the spending, and they weren't not in a position to do so economically at the time. And in fact, you could see the latter years of their ownership of the Speedway and everything. They weren't in position to make the kind of investments in the facility and the series that they had. So I think, as you pointed out rightfully, Will, they were at a point where, had someone, whether it was Roger Penske or anybody else, not taken it off their hands when they did, there's a fair chance that the series certainly would not have survived in its current form, at least.
Sure. I don't know that this is true, but I was told this by an owner a long time ago, 2016, said that, don't make any mistake about it. The only thing they care about is the Indy 500. Everything else is a necessary evil. And I look at
and it's what's killed the sport for decades.
Horrible.
They place so much emphasis. I say that, the Speedway, it's a cult like Disney. They've created place fans, not race fans.
Yeah.
They're Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans. They're Indy 500 fans, and they're not watching Long Beach on television, and they're not getting in their car and driving to Iowa and enjoying a short track race.
Sure.
And that Indy 500 uber alles rhetoric that's been jammed down our throat I mean, I wasn't alive until the mid 60s and I didn't start paying attention till the late 70s, but yeah, we know.
Yeah.
And when was you've got to, at some point, you've got to look at the greater good. And when was IndyCar racing at its most successful? Not the Indy 500, which was still close to its most successful, but IndyCar racing was at its most successful from the mid 80s to the mid to late 90s. Mm-hmm. And that's because, as my pal David Phillips said, someone miraculously in that 10 or 12 year period managed to harness the power of the Indianapolis 500 and make it relevant to these other races, to Long Beach, to Cleveland, to Michigan, to Milwaukee. And when it went back to Penske ownership, the focus all went back to the Speedway and the 500. Yeah. And it's what the crime and the irony of it to me is that this is why Roger formed CART in 1978, because it was all Indy 500. Mm-hmm. And Roger's the guy that's made it all Indy 500 all the time again. Yeah. And that's why the series is in the toilet right now.
The honeymoon is over. The word on the street is, and I get what you're saying in terms of the devaluation, where Fox can come in for $130 million and buy a third of the series. I'm just hoping,
and the Speedway,
and
the production company,
right? I'm just hoping Fox is not a passive investor, but they're going to take it seriously and they're going to want to try to make some money with it and turn the ship around. I've got to get going, John. One more question, maybe not pertinent exactly, but somebody should write an article on what will save IndyCar. Somebody should write that and publish.
Somebody just did, and it's going to be the cover story of the new Motorsport magazine in November.
I can't wait to read it. Would bringing the Triple Crown back, would that have any value at all?
It doesn't bring back any value unless the other two events are events.
Yeah.
I mean, right. You can't just go run in front of 15,000 people at Pocono and whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter unless the other two events actually have some value. And I saw somebody put the idea, well, why don't you make it Indianapolis and Long Beach and Mid-Ohio or something? Yeah. And that just doesn't have the same. But what they've got, they got to walk before they run. They've got to establish the fan base for starters. Mm-hmm. The fact that they consistently get 700,000 viewers for their races, that's a test pattern number. That's an infomercial number. That's a serious problem, especially for a sport that creates its economic value out of those numbers. And one of the conclusions I make in my story is the entire philosophy, whether it's, it's all got to change. You got to blow it up. You've got to have fast, meaningful cars again. You've got to market it as something special, and it's got to be marketed as something special outside of Interstate 465 in Indianapolis.
Oh. Tony Donahue, who I know Tony Donahue said a few months ago on the show, he was talking about it. He said, yeah, Indy 500 is a 465 race. And I'm thinking 365, 465, because it's all the fans are in 465 in that loop. That's where everybody comes from. And until you break out of that, John,
I don't know whether they're naive or just ignoring it, but they don't have any fans.
It's the truth. Well, they got us, John. They got us.
They've alienated the old ones, and they aren't bringing any new ones.
Hey, listen, I got to have you back, especially after I read this article. And when's your new book coming out?
So, Class of '99, which documents the '99 CART season and the way it spawned a generation of drivers: Kanaan, Castroneves, Greg Moore, Dario Franchitti, Juan Pablo Montoya. Greatest single season of IndyCar racing in history. Available October 7th through Octane Press. Pre-orders available now. You can order it on Amazon. You can order it through octanepress.com. Real special project. It had a couple deaths involved, but it's a more upbeat book than Indy Split, just because it celebrates friendship and camaraderie.
Well, I won't comment on that, but nothing could be worse than Indy Split.
Hey, I tried to end the Split book with an upbeat, Penske's going to save it, and now I need a new afterword that says 5 years later we need to revisit this.
John, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope they'll come back and we'll talk more about your new book next time. Thank you.
You bet, Will. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thanks so much, John. John Orjovich, and that's it. Hey, we're out of here now. When we turn off, I'm going to get the incredible pleasure of co-hosting with a legend, Kurt Hansen has been broadcasting for decades. He knows every discipline of motorsports, a driver himself. And right after we sign off, go to racecentral.com. We're going to be there, and I'm going to have the pleasure of hosting with Kurt. So give us a few minutes, and we're going to change over. And racecentral.com is where you want to go. Thanks. See you later.